Hello, welcome to my stream. If you are watching the VOD, I'm Nathan Hatch. I'm a health writer and advocate. Today we are going to talk about low back pain. I give people like 8 to 10 minutes to come trickling in, so if you are watching the VOD, you can skip ahead to where we start chatting. The screen changes from starting soon here to the not starting soon screen, which could give you a clue. But welcome. Yeah, gonna give people a little bit to come in, and then we'll get started. So I'll chat with you guys in a little bit. Feel free to. Oh, also, if you aren't aware, everyone can participate in chat and ask me questions as well. I usually get to questions at the end of the stream, though. Here, I'll get that started. Hi. Getting started soon. Hey, Malind. How's it going, bud? Nice to see you. I finally replied to the email that you sent me. I had a very busy last few days. Yeah, it's gonna be more about lower back pain, but we can talk about other torso pains. There's a lot. There's a lot of them. The body can be full of pain sometimes, for lots of different reasons. Like what you're specifically talking about are actually more like internal organ pains, like kidney pain and gallbladder and stuff, from like kidney stones or appendicitis kind of things. But today we're going to be specifically talking about low back pain, which is like it's very specifically centered around the spine, and it makes it very difficult for people to sit still for very long. Oh god, I mean mine was excruciating when I was younger. Oh, it was so bad. Yeah, you've been doing a lot of inventory. That's really great. Yeah. Good. I'm glad it was. Yeah, you're doing really well. You've gotten to a point now, Malind, where you are really recognizing a lot of those issues on your own, and you're just not used to being able to do that, so you kind of second guess yourself. But I mean, yeah, like you were spot on with all of your suspicions and insight. Yeah, it was really good. Good job. If you are watching the VOD, we're talking about mental health inventory therapy, which helps really well to resolve trauma and unresolved trauma and experiences of disappointment and childhood abuse and things like that. And it's really, really useful for fixing your brain. So yeah, I know I haven't streamed in a while, so I don't expect a lot of people to come in. I've sort of been neglecting that since I've been working on my updates so much. I tend to get sort of lost in my research, so and then when my brain is fixated on that, I don't know what I can talk about during the stream, so I don't really come by. Also, YouTube hasn't really been a very good vehicle for bringing awareness to my work. It's more of a supplement for all of you that already support my work. Yeah, Malind, it should be out very soon. I have like 1 or 2 things that I'm still working on that are giving me a lot of trouble. But there's so much in the new book. It's like, I mean, some of the chapters I just completely rewrote actually. And I anticipate it being out probably in a few weeks. Because after I get done with my research, I then have to edit everything, and God knows I'm not a very good editor. I mean, I am, but like editing a book this ginormous on my own is just such a Herculean task, and my brain, yesterday I just like picked up The Perfect Child off the shelf and like browsed through it because it's so fun to hold your own book, like something that you wrote. And it's different in your hands on paper than it is in a digital version. And I just flipped it open to like look at something I wrote, and there was a spelling error in there where autocorrect changed. I was referring to a median in the street, and autocorrect wrote medium, and that's in every printed copy of that. And the good thing about ebooks is you can update them and send them out, but once print is out there, you can't change that stuff. But yeah, but anyway, everybody gets the idea. I mean, people understand what I mean, and people have been very generous. When I tell people a lot that when I first was publishing my book, I was really nervous that people were going to be really mean to me about my spelling and grammar, because I'm not very good at that stuff, and there were a lot of errors in there, and I obviously tried to get it as clean as possible, but no, I don't use Grammarly. I don't know. My book is 280,000 words. I don't think I can feed that through Grammarly. But I would also be nervous too to like, I don't know why, like upload my whole book to something like that. They might be using it for AI research, your submissions for AI conditioning and stuff. But do you know how many times I've been criticized for my poor writing? which isn't that great, but do you know how many times? Guess how many times I've had people criticize me for that? Hey Mike. I actually didn't even know what that was, Mike, until a few days ago. I mean, I saw it on commercials, but they don't explain it, and then through the Jenny Craig shutdown, I did, but I haven't really. But it actually might be okay. I don't know though. I really haven't done any research into it though. So, but anyway, only like 2.5 people have ever criticized my book, my grammar. And one of them is really funny. One of them, she said, "I don't know what a paragraph is," and I mean, yeah, like a lot of my paragraphs run on for a long, and I mean, anyway, it was people have been very, very generous toward my writing. Yeah, and I think too, not having an editor sort of lends itself to a little bit more authenticity. I think that people better realize that like the person that wrote this book is like, just one person and their life story and experience. And whereas when you get industry published work, there have been many hands on any piece. There's the author and their editor, and then they have assistants. There's editor assistants and copyright editors, or copy editors, and so it can really, and while books are amazing, right, and great, but you sort of get this idea that like they're put out by industry rather than like a person, and especially since my book is so much about personal health and wellness, I think that a lot of the flaws in my book sort of lend to that, even though they're often ridiculous and distracting. But they do also kind of bring you back. Like when you're reading and you see like a bad error, it makes you pay attention. You go like, oh my gosh, I've sort of zoned out, and now here's this spelling error. Like I feel so much contempt for their bad grammar. And so I think it actually probably might actually have a positive side to it. But anyway, okay, we're at 10 minutes now. Oh, also, well, actually, too, I also, I mean, I tried to get my book published by one publishing house, and they turned me down, and I didn't really expect anybody to, but I have intimate experience with the publishing industry through one of my exes, and also it's an awful industry. Like I remember one time I was at this party with all of these editors and writers, and one of the editors at this huge publishing house got super wasted, and she started bashing one of her writers, who's this like multi-millionaire, like huge franchise writer, and claiming that she wrote most of the book, and it was just kind of nuts. I mean, it was really insane, actually. And you know, maybe she did, but like, you know, she isn't the writer though. And it was so inappropriate, and I had lots of really bad experiences with the publishing industry. But anyway, okay, we'll go ahead and start. There's only a few people here, but that's okay. Hey guys, welcome. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about low back pain. So this is out there because, so actually I was actually like recommended a YouTube video. First, I don't know why though, actually, because I don't like usually click on these kind of videos, but for Hank and John Green's channel, and I know of them. They're great guys, but I've not like a lot of you know, I like watching let's plays and video games and and Trey the Explainer and, you know, things like that. And but one of them was talking about low back pain and sort of talking about herniated discs and surgery and things like that. And there's a lot of people that have low back pain and chronic low back pain, and it's absolutely debilitating as well. And I had it for years when I was younger, and everything you've heard about low back pain is completely wrong. And I'm going to explain to you why that is in this stream, so that you can be better empowered to help take care of your own health. So growing up, my dad had really bad back pain. He actually had a herniated disc. He was a construction worker and architect. And one day when he was younger, when he was building a house, he fell off a roof and it dislocated herniated a disc in his spine. And he ended up having surgery on it, and ever since had chronic low back pain because he was literally missing a disc between his two vertebrae, and the discs in between your vertebrae cushion the bones so that they don't rub against each other. And so if you don't have an actual disc in there, it can cause a lot of pain. And so I grew up with this person who had this chronic low back pain so bad my entire life. And even though I knew the story behind why he had it, when I started having low back pain, I kind of just accepted it as like a reality of life rather than something anomalous that I should have been able to fix. And my low back pain started when I was really young. I don't remember exactly when, but by the time I was 25, 26, I could not sit still at work. It was so bad. And you know, and also in a lot of you guys that know my story, like I grew up in a conservative Mormon family with lots of hate and anger and shaming and fear mongering. And when you grow up in an environment like that, you sort of just think that pain and suffering is a constant in life, and that is your job to put up with it, not to actually like do anything about it. So, you know, I had like debilitating suicidal depression, really bad insomnia. I started having erectile dysfunction in my 20s. Weight issues. My skin looked really bad. I had a hard time maintaining muscle, even though I was a state champion swimmer when I was younger and co-captain of my swimming team. And I ate what I thought was a nice diet too. Like I had, you know, things like yogurts and salads and chicken and you know, and pasta. Um, and so anyway, so I get to the age of like 25, 26, and I was also a graphic artist. I was a motion graphics artist. I did like animations and special effects and title design. And the art was really fun, but a lot of people that I worked for were just terrible. And I worked in Los Angeles, and the industry is really awful and doesn't pay very well either, you know. And this is kind of a theme for all of our generations right now. Um, Baby boomers did not pay forward their wealth. You know, they got paid great wages when they were children, and then when they became bosses, exploited us. And I got paid for my work. Probably about, you know, a good 40 to 50% less than what an equivalent career would have been 2 or 3, 4 decades earlier. And also demanded long hours. And so, and because when you're a graphic artist working in Los Angeles, you know, you're part of the media industry, and there's a lot of demand for labor. I mean, not like employment demand, but like there's a lot of demand on the workers to produce more for being paid less. And I would work every day. I would work at least 10 hours. It's not a 9 to 5. It's usually like a 10 to 7 or 8 p.m. At night. And with just like half an hour lunch break and that's your only break for the day. And you basically sit at a computer all day long. And if you have lower back pain, that's nearly impossible. And it was so bad. I mean, it literally was driving me insane. It was like a constant torture. Every day I would go to work, and I had to go to work, and I had to sit, and that killed me. It hurt so fucking bad. I cannot even describe to you how insane it was. And this went on for years. And it was so bad that I ended up, in part, it was actually really nice to be sort of independent. But one of the reasons that I became a freelance graphic designer was that my low back pain and my stomach pains were so bad that I had to take a break from work in order to just not go completely insane. So like I would work at a job as a freelancer for like a month or two, and then I would get like, and then when that job would end, because you're on like some design project, so you're like doing something for Travel Channel or something for Fox or something for, you know, NFL Network, and then that project ends, so then they don't need you anymore. So then you take a break, and then you get a call in for the next job, and you can like, you know, you can easily turn down jobs as a freelancer. You can be like, oh no, I'm busy, but in reality, I wasn't busy. My lower back hurt so fucking bad that I could not stand to sit in a chair for like another minute, and I would have to like lay on my couch and do a lot of yoga and take a lot of pain meds until the pain would start to subside. And then after it would get better, then I would accept another job again and get back out there and then go through the whole thing all over again. And there was this really particularly awful stretch of time when I worked at a company for a continuous 9 months, even though I was maybe not 9, maybe it was like 6 months. Even though I was a freelancer, and they call that kind of permalance is what they called. And we were working on this video game trailer for a Square Enix title. And it was so demanding. There was so much work to do that I was literally there for 10 to 12 hours, sometimes 14 to 16 hours every single day of the week. Of the standard work week. And it was so bad, and I was like a lead on the project, so I couldn't really like quit it. So I was suffering so much. And so I like bought I would go like get a massage every weekend, and I would use painkillers every day. And I even bought like a special chair. There was like these, I looked through chairs, and there was like this chair that like promised to like relieve you of low back pain, and like it had this really stupid design where it didn't have a back to it, and your knees sort of like rested on this it was sort of slanted, and your knees rested on this like knee rest in front. And so supposedly all of the pressure of sitting was supposed to be transferred into your legs rather than in your back. And you could feel that too when you sat in it. Actually, like it was really weird because even though it didn't have a back, my torso would feel very supported and upright. But it looked really stupid though too, and it also required some core strength. And so if you're sitting that in that for like 10 hours a day, your abs start to get really tired, and that didn't really work either. And my back still hurt. My back still fucking hurt after doing that. So I mean, this went on for years, and and a lot of a lot of you who follow me and read my work, you guys know that I'm 6'7". I'm absolutely enormous. And so naturally too, you think that, oh, I have low back pain because I'm just huge, and that's just a natural consequence of being a giant. Guess what? So back then I was always between 225 to 240 pounds. I'm 260 pounds now. I'm also 42 now. So I'm like almost 20 years older than I was when I first started having back pain. And I sit now for 8 to 10 hours a day and have absolutely no back pain ever. And I mean ever. Like, I never have low back pain. And I haven't had low back pain for the last like 8 years of my life, ever since I started, all of this work that I do, because I figured out what it is and how to cure it. And I also sit in this like sort of cheap crate and barrel bucket. It's like this like felted bucket chair. Like, there's no back, but it kind of has like this. It's like a short bucket kind of thing. It's really cute, and I bought it because it fit nicely under my little desk that I have. And I mean, I literally sit here, like also 8 to 10 hours a day, writing, researching, playing video games. My computer is also my television. So I watch, I stream movies and TV and the internet and streamers. And so I'm always at my desk, except for when I'm like outside going for walks or, going grocery shopping or hanging out with people. And I spend almost as much time sitting here. And I'm 20 years older than I was when I had back pain. And I'm also at least 20 pounds heavier. And I have no back pain ever. And I didn't get surgery. And I didn't do any of that crap. And it's because low back pain is actually caused by opportunistic and pathogenic gut bacteria. And I'll tell you why. So anyway, a lot of people think that low back pain, it has to do with discs in your back and pressures of sitting. And it really has nothing to do with that. Yes, of course, if you're like my dad and you fall off a roof and you dislocate a disc, that's going to be painful, right? That's different. Most people who have low back pain have none of that at all. They might have like a bulging disc or a disc that's like, suffering. But it's not that there's anything wrong with the disc. Like, we are a living creature. Our bodies heal. Your tissues regenerate. It should be able to heal something like that. It has done that the prior years of your life that you didn't have low back pain, like you weren't like a little kid running around, with like clutching your lower back all the time and talking about your herniated disc. And we think that's because we're smaller, right? So there's less pressure on our back. I'm fucking 260 pounds and 6'7", and I sit for 8 to 10 hours a day. And I used to have bad back pain, and I don't anymore at all. It is not how back pain works. For a select few people who have herniated discs, that is the problem. But normally, low back pain is not that. So specifically what happens is we have these muscles. This is going to be a short stream, by the way, because this is really easy to explain. So we have these muscles. And also, if you don't know, you can ask questions and I'll talk about them, about anything else you want to talk about at the end of the main topic. But anyway, so we have this muscle group called the psoas muscles. And this also really bugs me too, because low back pain is so obvious what it is that people who advocate for surgeries clearly don't know anything about human physiology, because the psoas muscles connect to your lower back and they connect to your upper legs. They are what help us stand upright. The psoas muscles are very, very important for posture and support. And guess what? They run right through the gut. And I don't mean like to the sides. They literally like interweave next to and through the intestinal system. And the intestinal system is where pathogenic and opportunistic microbial microbes set up shop. and invade your gut and stomach. And anyway, and the reason that they cause low back pain is because a lot of opportunistic and pathogenic microbes produce toxic metabolites like ammonia and hydrogen sulfide and lactic acid. And yes, lactic acid is a toxic metabolite. Lactic acid actually lowers metabolic respiration in cells. And there's also toxic tryptophan derivatives. What else? I can't think of others right now, but there's even others that I'm not remembering at the moment. And these toxicological products that these microbes create from the food that you eat in your gut leak through the intestinal system into the surrounding tissues. I mean, that's the entire point of digestion. But what that does around the psoas is it causes the psoas to stiffen and tighten. And because the psoas connects to your lower back and it can no longer, it's no longer very elastic or resilient to injury, it becomes easily injured. So even the slightest pressure on it, like tension stress from sitting all day long, it not only can't it resist that stress, so it tears and damages easily, it also doesn't regenerate very easily. And that is what low back pain is right where your psoas connects to your lower spine, and the pressure of this tightened, shortened, stiff psoas muscle, connective tissue, and the ligaments and stuff that it connects to are being injured and cannot regenerate because of the effects of opportunistic and pathogenic microbes that have colonized your gut. And this also isn't like an obscure, like maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Usually, just like me when I was younger, when you have this kind of lower back pain, you also have other health problems or manifestations of the presence of these bacteria. You might have regular stomach aches. You might have weight issues. You might be losing your hair. You might have insomnia. You probably are developing depression. You just maybe don't have a lot of energy, like you feel kind of fatigued and sluggish all the time. Maybe your skin is looking ashy and dull. These microbes, like interfering with our digestion system and displacing healthy commensal microbes, are the cause of these kinds of problems, like chronic low back pain. So, and I'll tell you how, and then I'll tell you also now how I solved it too. So, oh, Mike, a chair with headrest has been a game changer for your upper back. Yeah, I mean, and also actually, that reminded me, there's something else I'm going to talk about too. It's called sway back disease, actually, that humans have. And Mike, you might actually be suffering from that too. Remind me if I don't get into that later. So, so the way that I found out about this was when I had cancer and got sober and my whole life fell apart. And that's when I started like learning all this stuff and making these discoveries. I used Ray Peat's work. Ray Peat, he's a biologist, if you guys don't know who he is. Very influential, very insightful. Was a lot of his work was focused on like gut health and bacteria, the effects of gut bacteria and causing disease and things like that. And I experimented with a lot of the things that he was talking about, plus additional research I was doing into other conditions and stuff. And I was feeling okay around that time. Like I'd been doing a lot of stuff to fix my cancer, which was working very well. And then that had systemic effects on a lot of the rest of my health. But I still had a little bit of lower back pain. It wasn't as bad, as it had been before, but it was still there. And I was looking into like alternative health stuff, just stuff about diet and nutrients and things like that. And there were people on forums that I used to be a part of who like recommended things, and people were talking about the benefit of like vitamin K, and that's like a big cornerstone of Ray Peat's work, vitamin K, because vitamin K is like one of the most crucial nutrients for our body. And in the gut, vitamin K is actually converted in also by our commensal microbiome into what are called vitamin K2, which are so plant vitamin K, K1 is called phyloquinone, and then the kinds of bacteria. The K2 that's made by bacteria is called menaquinone. Am I saying that right? I haven't seen that word printed for a while. And vitamin K2 is probably even more important to us than vitamin K1. It has much more specialized functions than just normal vitamin K1, and both of them, and they're both required for things like calcium metabolism in our body and stuff. And so some people had this idea that like, oh, you can use like foods or supplements high in vitamin K2 as a supplement way to get this in your body. And one of the foods that's really high in vitamin K2 is this Japanese dish called natto, which is fermented soybeans. And there's this bacterium in there called Bacillus subtilis. And I started, and a lot of people recommend Bacillus subtilis or natto in order to get more vitamin K2 production in your body or to supplement it for health stuff. So I tried it. And I didn't recognize this connection at the time, and you'll see why. But all of a sudden, my back pain started getting so much worse. And I just ranted about how bad it was. This was the worst it had ever been in my entire life. My lower back pain got so bad that at the age of 34, probably 35 by this point, I was having to lift myself up out of my bed and chairs with my hands like I was an 80-year-old man. It was so bad. And at that time too, right at that time I had quit working as a graphic artist and was doing my writing and my book full time. And so I was working at home all the time. So that was very convenient for having low back pain, because I could take a break if I needed to, but God, I couldn't sit in my chair for more than 30 minutes. It was so bad. It was so bad that I almost was going to go to the hospital because it hurt so much. But I thought this was a recent development. I can probably figure out what's going on. And so I started thinking about what I was doing. And I remembered that I had been taking natto and Bacillus subtilis. And I, hadn't researched Bacillus subtilis before because it's sold as a probiotic. So I did some research on it, and it turns out that it's a known potential pathogen of humans. And I was like, what the fuck? So I stopped taking it, but also at the time, and I'm known for promoting iodine for specific strategies and use, and you have to use it right though, so don't just like don't just like use huge doses of it. And I'd been researching some other stuff in terms of gut health, and at that time I had found out too that like Swiss cheese is like actually like one of the best probiotics that you can use. Swiss cheese has this species in them called Propionibacterium, and Propionibacterium are major promoters of another group called Bifidobacterium, that are some of the most important commensal microbes for our gut, and are some of the earliest colonizers too of like the infant gut. Bifidobacterium are. And so I resolved to so what I did is, once I realized that Bacillus subtilis was probably the reason that my back pain had gotten so bad, I took a dose of iodine in milk and also huge amounts of Swiss cheese, and it wiped out my back pain like so fast, like literally like 36 hours. It was gone. It was just completely gone. By 48 hours, it was like I had never had back pain in my entire life. And I just was completely gobsmacked by this. Like, I mean, it was just, I was so unexpected. I dealt with back pain my entire life, and I wiped it out in 2 days just from using iodine and Swiss cheese. And also, though, here's a caveat to that. I had already changed my diet according to like what I talk about in my books. And that's a huge part of this. It wasn't just that I did that. It was, and so if you're listening to this, don't expect your low back pain to go away if you do that, because you have to fix your diet, because there's a lot of dietary promoters of these opportunistic and pathogenic colonizers of the human gut. And if you don't change your diet, you easily get recolonized by them, because you can just pick them up anywhere. You pick them up from kissing people, food contamination, hand to mouth, like shaking hands and stuff like that. Like it's really easy to pick up pathogenic organisms. And the reason that we don't normally have them is not because we're not exposed to them. There's sort of this real big fallacy in paranoia with people and bacteria and parasites thinking that we don't get exposed to these stuff. You do, absolutely. A lot more people than realize are colonized by parasites. Parasites have become really good at actually suppressing our immune system, but not causing significant disease. And they actually facilitate secondary bacterial infection by these pathogens like Clostridium difficile. Actually, it's called Clostridiales difficile now. Helicobacter pylori, Escherichia coli, all these pathogens, and Bacillus subtilis is one. And guess what? Bacillus species are not a probiotic. Bacillus species are highly proteolytic. They produce enzymes that dissolve protein. That's why I'm smashing my fist now for emphasis, but you can't see. That's why it's used as to make natto, because the bacterium breaks down the beans more aggressively than saccharolytic or lipolytic bacteria. Sugar eaters and fat eaters, they can't break down that protein. Like beans, seeds are very dense in protein, and they have protective proteins that inactivate enzymes, and so you have to have really aggressive bacteria to break down foods like that. And that's why Bacillus subtilis is one of the bacteria that can do that. And for that same reason, it eats into your fucking spine. It eats you alive from the inside. That's why you have lower back pain, is because microbes are literally eating your tissues. Microbes want to eat us. That's the entire point of a lot of pathogenic microbes. And people walk around like they're not a problem. People walk around like, oh, I have to have surgery on my back. No, there are literally bacterium in your gut that are eating you alive. That's part of mortality. That's part of life, of being a human being. We are a huge animal with these major quantity of nutrients that we just shove into our mouth hole. And your gut is just full of all of this available nutrient. There are so many pathogens trying to get in there so that they can benefit from access to those nutrients. So this is where the diet comes in, though. So I mean, I was being kind of hyperbolic. It might wipe your back pain out if you do some iodine and Swiss cheese. But the reason that they're in there, though, is because of your dietary practices. So let's talk about mine. When I was in my 20s, my diet consisted of a lot of yogurt and a lot of wheat. And these foods directly contribute to colonization by pathogenic organisms. And I know that is exactly contrary to what the advertising and marketing industry has told you, and dairy industry, but they're completely wrong. And this is why. So in all metabolic disease, such as like diabetes and other gut-related conditions, the fecal content will contain a much higher ratio of lactic acid to short-chain fatty acids. Short-chain fatty acids are things like acetic acid, which is a constituent of vinegar, or butyric acid, or propionic acid. That's why Propionibacterium are called that, because they are prolific producers of propionic acid, which is a short-chain fatty acid that we need for a lot of really important metabolic functions in our body. Also, actually, here's an aside. Just changing topics real quick. Have you guys noticed I haven't coughed yet once this stream, and my last stream was just like coughing constantly because I have cystic fibrosis, if you don't know that. I've been making a lot of headway on cystic fibrosis, and that's going to be part of my update. I'm very, very happy about it. Also, I feel way better. Also, like, I mean, that's one of the reasons too why like my health was crashing so bad at like in just 30s. Cystic fibrosis, your lifespan, the average lifespan with that for anybody with cystic fibrosis is about 30 years old, depending on which country you live in. So the fact that I'm still alive at 42 is really nothing short of a miracle. Especially since I didn't even know that I had cystic fibrosis before. But anyway, in metabolic disease, when you have cystic fibrosis or diabetes or SIBO or IBS, your fecal content will contain. Yeah, thanks, Melinda. Yeah, I know it's crazy. Like the last stream actually was really bad because I'd also been experimenting with some iodine, and whenever I did that, it will make my immune reaction to the bacteria go off more. I don't think I've done a single stream where I haven't coughed in at least, I mean, it's been 40 minutes of talking straight so far. So anyway, lactic acid. So lactic acid, your fecal content when you have metabolic disease will always be elevated in lactic acid. And one of the reasons for that is that the microbiome shifts. When you have a healthy commensal microbiome, they produce more short chain fatty acids than lactic acid by a large margin as well too, because lactic acid is actually not useful nutrient in our body actually at all. When you eat a bunch of yogurt, the lactic acid, the only reason that it is popularized, especially in the form of yogurt, is because lactic acid was determined to be antibacterial, not because it's actually any kind of a nutrient substrate for our body. We can use lactic acid to make energy, but only something like one molecule. Like I can't remember the exact numbers, but like sugar, for instance, like one sugar molecule, I think produces something like 13 molecules of ATP. No, is that right? I don't remember. And lactic acid produces like one, and a fat molecule will produce something like 30 molecules of ATP. It isn't really used to make energy. It's just metabolized and happens to produce one ATP as a result. Lactic acid, not only though, actually, does lactic acid not have nutrient properties, it actively reduces and inhibits and lowers mitochondrial respiration, cellular respiration, the pathway by which our body actually makes energy. And this is one of the reasons why lower back pain starts to happen, is because the diet contains things like yogurt, or you have high colonization by lactic acid producing bacteria. And then the leakage and saturation for lactic acid into the gut and surrounding organs and circulation through the body actively reduces your body temperature and metabolic rate. And metabolic rate and temperature is a direct reflection of your production of ATP, which is our energy molecule. So when you actually eat, so regardless of the source though, whether you're eating yogurt or you just are naturally producing lots of lactic acid in your gut because of colonization by lots of lactic acid producers. And remember, lactic acid is antibiotic, antimicrobial. And so are the short chain fatty acids actually. But that isn't necessarily good, right? Like it's touted that lactic acid is useful because it's antibacterial. Well, guess what? Our entire microbiome are microbes. So the real question underlying that is, which microbes is lactic acid antibacterial to? Is it helpful or useful in promoting healthy bacterium? And you can find studies that show the answer to either, and it depends on how you construct the study. And studies aren't often very useful. And this is a real problem too with science. A lot of science promoters is that science is just as rife with malfeasance and ineptitude as any other profession. There's a lot of underhanded conflicts of interest and also just pure ignorance in science, actually, that happens. Just because people can do experiments and write studies doesn't mean they actually know what they're talking about. I reference one very famous study in my book to demonstrate this principle, where a long time ago, a bunch of scientists raised a big brouhaha over barbecue food because it contained a potential carcinogen called acrylamide that can potentially cause cancer. But guess what? These scientists did not do any laboratory studies. They did a phone survey and deduced that people who ate barbecue food had a greater increase in having pancreatic cancer. But guess what? The thing they didn't mention in the study is that acrylamide is entirely destroyed by stomach acid. They didn't mention that. I don't even know if they knew that. And acrylamide, there's way more toxic and way higher amounts of toxic chemicals on your grocery store receipt than there is in barbecue food. And we've been eating barbecue food for, millennia. Ever since we discovered fire, we've been eating fucking barbecue food. And the reason that it got picked up and distributed so much was because it was great clickbait. Oh, you can't eat your barbecue anymore because there's toxic chemicals in there. Like, like that's going to make a lot of people really pissed off, and that'll get a lot of views. That's not responsible science distribution. That's more like propaganda. So, anyway, the whole idea that lactic acid bacteria are necessarily good for us is not actually how it works at all. A lot of lactic acid producers are active pathogens or inhibit our commensal microbiome. Not only that, they're also high consumers of other B vitamins like B6. And a lot of lactic acid producers also produce a lot of histamine. And histamine excess, histamine's like, that's what makes you itch and get allergic reactions. Your body releases histamine when you get exposed to stuff. So if you're actually eating bacteria that are high histamine producers, like are in most yogurt, you get a lot of allergic reactions because of that. And not only that, that lactic acid that you're shoveling into your mouth suppresses a lot of your commensal microbes like bifidobacterium. So, and when I say I ate a lot of yogurt, I mean like I ate a lot of yogurt because I had been told it was healthy for me. I ate buckets of yogurt. I would buy like a quart of yogurt and I would eat almost the entire thing every single day. Because remember, I'm 6'7" and I was like 230 pounds. I needed a lot of calories, and I didn't cook a lot when I was younger, and I didn't have a lot of food culture, and so yogurt was like a really convenient source of calories. And I would usually buy, the ones with fruit or sugar, or I would add fruit and sugar to it to make it taste better. Because fucking like plain yogurt tastes really good. Like if you're having a little bit of it with like Indian food, and little amounts of it are not a problem. Don't misunderstand me. A lot of people take new information like that and become dogmatic and run with it. There is nothing wrong with having a dollop of sour cream or a little bit of yogurt like raita with your Indian food. I was shoveling like a quart of yogurt into my body every single day. And because lactic acid lowers your metabolic rate, that lowers your immune function and your mucosal barrier defense and all these other problems. And so I was basically just killing myself by supplementing all this lactic acid every single day. And then on top of that, I was eating a lot of common wheat because a lot of people also don't know that common wheat is also usually fortified with a lot of problematic ingredients that also compromise your metabolic respiration and your microbiome. In addition to the fact that common wheat is very high in gluten that's hard to digest for most humans. And I get into this in my book. It's a long story, but basically like common wheat nowadays is not the same as wheat we used to eat. It's been hybridized so much that the gluten in it is almost impossible for most people to digest. And so you start having lots of inflammation and problems with the gluten content of that, but especially because of being colonized by opportunistic microbes. Gluten allergy is often very, Melinda, you are actually Indian, so there's a lot of yogurt in your diet, and a lot of really good foods. I mean, raita is like so delicious. So people will be like, but people will be like, oh, well, what about Greek yogurt? It's strained. No, like Greek yogurt in the U.S. is sold as something to eat in large quantities, not as like a garnish to like a bigger dish. It should be kept to a minimum if you have it at all. But there's nothing wrong with having it. The bigger problem is your whole diet together. That's why I'm like also talking about wheat, common wheat. But Melinda, homemade yogurt is still So there is a difference though. So like commercial yogurt and yogurt packages and yogurt starters contain like species like what is it? It's Delbrueckii. I can't remember the genus name. Something Delbrueckii is a well, here I have the internet in front of me. I can just look it up. Delbrueckii. It's a Lactobacillus delbrueckii. So Lactobacillus delbrueckii is one of the major microbes in commercial yogurt products. And But guess what? It's assumed like part of the bias on for or toward for in favor of yogurt is this assumption that it's like natural somehow. But just like natto and Bacillus subtilis, the cultures that are in yogurt are added there by food chemists and people that make this stuff for commercial products and distribution. And one of the reasons that these bacteria are so good at making yogurt is that they're really good at breaking down protein. And that's the entire problem behind pathogenic colonization of the gut that causes these kinds of metabolic disease, is that the same bacteria that break down protein in milk and meat, they do that in your body too. Your body's made out of protein. So you get these high proteolytic bacteria that produce proteolytic enzymes that dissolve protein, and you purposely put them in your gut. That's going to do that to your stomach. And so anyway, traditional buttermilk, like when, and then okay, and the commercial species are not found in any natural milk samples in anything. Like you assume that like, oh, it's cow milk or whatever. Like these bacteria are part of cow milk and part of the natural microbiome. They're not. You cannot find Lactobacillus delbrueckii in any natural samples of milk anywhere. It comes from like plants. Like it's like a like in nature. It was probably like originally yogurt production was probably started by people who put leaves into milk and used the bacterium that are already on plants to inoculate milk, and then developed yogurt cultures through that kind of strategy. Or also were contaminated themselves with these. And a lot of cultures, like when they do fermented foods, they actually spit into the ferment because there's a lot of bacteria in our mouths. And depending on what bacteria you're actually colonized by, you add those to those, and that's how like a lot of there's still traditional fermented products all over the world that are made by first chewing parts of the food or spitting into the product actually. And if you're colonized by opportunistic proteolytic microbes, that's what's in that. Delbrueckii, what was I talking about? Lactic acid. So yeah. So sorry, Melinda. Yeah, I was answering your question, Melinda. So having studies show that traditionally fermented, like buttermilk, for instance, when you so one of the reasons that these bacteria are a problem is because they produce a different form of lactic acid than what our bodies produce. This has to do with trans and cis chemistry, where you have cis molecules that have parts of the molecule on one side of the molecule, and then the trans isomer, which is where those other atoms move to the other side or are formed on the other side of the molecule, and they have all the same different atoms, just a different configuration. The most toxic lactic acid are produced by bacterium, who produce, I think the form is L-lactic acid, and the form that we make, I think, is D-lactic acid. It could be exactly opposite that, I don't remember, but I think that's what it is. And some bacterium do produce the D-lactic acid, so they're less harmful. And I mean less harmful, not harmful. I had someone message me once and tell me that they were having buttermilk every day, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" And you said, "Buttermilk has like good." And I said, "No, I didn't. I said that they are less harmful." It's not harmful. It's just less harmful. Anytime you put lots of lactic acid into your body, that will automatically always reduce the metabolic rate, because that's what lactic acid does in our body. When you work out and you get that lactic acid burn and you can't work out anymore, that's what lactic acid does. Lactic acid slows down your cellular function. So if your gut is producing huge amounts of lactic acid, or you're shoveling lots of lactic acid into your mouth, how are those cells supposed to operate, right? So, anyway, but traditional cultures where you let milk ferment itself and you don't add commercial starters to it are more likely to have better, healthier bacteria in them that produce the less harmful amounts of lactic acid. They still produce lactic acid though. So, but the reason for that, like one of the reasons that buttermilk has a different smell and flavor than yogurt is because the cultures in there produce more short chain fatty acids than lactic acid. So there's still a lot of lactic acid in it, but it also has acetic acid and butyric acid, and butyric acid is really stinky. Like that's why buttermilk smells a little bit different. That's why Swiss cheese smells a little bit different. Swiss cheese, Propionibacterium bacterium produce propionic acid, and propionic acid and butyric acid are kind of smelly. And then acetic acid smells like vinegar. So your diet, having things like yogurt, lactic acid, and one of the things I differ with Ray Peat on. Ray was like against all fermentations, but fermentation happens in our gut, and we need short chain fatty acids. They underpin so much of our physiology. Acetic acid is a foundation for our cholesterol. And if you're listening, you probably think cholesterol is bad for you. No, cholesterol is the precursor to steroids. You cannot make hormones and steroids, most of them, not all of them, but most of them you cannot make without cholesterol, and you can't make cholesterol without acetic acid. And acetic acid is also a cofactor in a lot of metabolic pathways. It's called acetyl coenzyme A. Acetylation of a lot of you might hear there's certain parts of the health internet that talk about methylation and problems with methylation, like being an undermethylator or an overmethylator. Methylation is like a way that our body turns off genes. So when you have excess methylation, you actually have less genetic function than you would otherwise. And acetic acid is the antagonist of methylation. A lot of methylation proponents on the web don't even talk about that because I don't think they know about that. Acetic acid is the opposite of, does the opposite of methyl groups. Acetyl groups turn on genes and activate genes, and methyl groups silence genes. And we need both of those in order to be alive. You can't have all genes on at all the times, and you can't have them all off at all the times. You just die. You die in either scenario. So our body uses both of those in order to balance those things. Anyway, things like kombucha are great because kombucha is mostly acetic acid, actually. It's basically just like tastier vinegar. And it can be really good. There's a big brand of kombucha that talks about how the person's mom, they started their business because their mom used it to cure her cancer. And that can happen because acetic acid helps to promote active respiration, unlike lactic acid, promotes respiration and metabolic pathways. And that's the entire problem behind cancer is an absence of cellular metabolic respiration. So anyway. But Ray got a little crazy in his later years and was advocating for like sterile gut and things like that, and that's just not okay. That's not how it works at all. You have to have healthy commensal microbiome in your gut to produce B vitamins and short chain fatty acids, and if you don't, you imperil your health because you have to have those in there. Even though you can drink kombucha, there are no real dietary sources of those short chain fatty acids. It just doesn't happen. You can't drink vinegar all the time. It's really caustic. And the amounts that are produced in the gut, while they're small in comparison, they're produced constantly. So you get this constant low dose stream of short chain fatty acids, and also propionic acid and butyric acid, and there's others too that I'm not remembering at the moment. Are really, 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 really vital for cellular pathways like that. So anyway, okay, so we were talking about wheat though. So the wheat gluten from common wheat is highly inflammatory, and one of the reasons that that's really hard to figure out and diagnose as well is because the reaction that makes gluten inflammatory doesn't happen until wheat hits your lower intestine. So that can take up to 2 or 3 meals later from the meal that you ate with wheat, because other food has to push that all the way to your lower intestine before that reaction happens. And one of the reasons that reaction is happening is because of these pathogenic and opportunistic proteolytic bacteria colonizing the gut, because we cannot break down the gluten, it travels intact to those bacteria. So then they start to eat it and produce more of the toxic compounds that they make, and that causes more metabolic deterioration, especially of the psoas and your lower back and your whole lower abdominal area, and causes those tissues to atrophy and stiffen and so. And then I mentioned too, wheat is commonly fortified. Oh my god, I can't believe I haven't coughed for once. This whole stream has been an hour. That's crazy. So wheat is commonly fortified also with other things that promote this process. The worst one is iron fortification of wheat. And now if you're like this idiot that once attacked me on Patreon. What's that awful site? Reddit. That attacked me on Reddit once. I wrote something about iron fortification of food promoting opportunistic bacteria. And they replied with this pithy retort of, don't avoid your iron, it's healthy for you. And I was like, where did you hear that on a cereal box? Like, that's not how that works at all. Iron added to food is nothing more than just iron shavings, literally just iron dust, just powdered all over that food. The iron that is in food is always complexed with proteins and enzymes. But food iron fortification is not. It's just iron powder. It's literally just iron powder. You can literally extract it from the food with a magnet. It's awful. It's nothing. It's no better than just literally going to a rusted steel beam and licking that. That is what you're getting when you eat iron fortified food. And guess what, though? The big reason that this is such a problem when you have low back pain is that pathogenic microbes, more than us and our commensal microbes, require iron for their growth and function. Iron is a potent oxidizer, and pathogenic microbes use it to cause damage to gain access to your tissues. So that's how a bacterium like Bacillus subtilis causes disease, is that it takes iron and uses it in enzymes that are proteolytic and that open your tissues up so that they can feed on and eat the nutrients that are inside of your cells. And then they produce other toxic besides just the outright toxins. I mean, like Clostridium difficile or Clostridiales difficile literally produces specific toxins. They're called toxin A and B, and they're literally designed to eat into your tissues. Like, that's how these bacterium cause disease. And everyone's like, oh, you need to go have surgery. Like, no. There's literally pathogenic organisms that are eating you from the inside out. So when you supplement iron into your body, there's my first cough. So when you're supplementing iron into your body, like that, you are basically just throwing gasoline on a fire. You are literally encouraging the overgrowth of pathogenic organisms in your body because they desperately require iron. And when you get colonized or infected by opportunistic pathogens, our body sequesters iron and zinc and copper away from those organisms and manganese so that they cannot produce those toxic compounds and gain access to those nutrients. And you're just shoveling more of it into your body. Free iron. It's not even bound to enzymes or proteins that would otherwise inhibit some access. Because remember, like in other plants and animals, they do the same thing. They sequester iron and important nutrients away from sites of pathogenic bacterial ingress, and using really effective, important proteins. Like, I mean, in humans, we have transferrin. That's like one of the major ones that we use. And so, when you eat like beef, like most of the protein is bound to heme or transferrin or other proteins. But the iron fortification of food is literally just iron shavings. Is literally just sprinkled on like fairy dust, and then all this pathogenic bacterium is going to grow. Another really harmful additive to wheat is called thiamine monophosphate. Sorry, that's not the one. That's not the one. I don't know why I said phosphate. That's not the one. Thiamine mononitrate is the problematic one, because nitrate, a lot of people don't know, is actually really toxic to the human body. Nitrate is basically one of the main points, or sorry, I'm stuttering again, is one of the main purposes of using synthetic fertilizer. Plants, actually, to be more precise, bacterium in the soil that help assist plant growth require nitrate so that they can grow. We require nitrogen as well. Nitrogen is the entire point of protein and amino acids. It's all different. Every amino acid and protein are all just different forms of nitrogen. And then when you eat protein and your stomach digests protein, releases ammonia, and enzymes, they release ammonia as a byproduct, which is a toxic form of nitrogen. And nitrates are also a toxic form of nitrogen. Nitrate very powerfully blocks and inhibits mitochondrial respiration. It's one of the higher toxic ones. There's like the ones that are worse are hydrogen sulfide and carbon monoxide. You've all heard the news stories of people dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, nitrate is only a little bit less toxic than hydrogen sulfide and carbon monoxide. Nitrate has to be reduced into nitrite and then into nitric oxide in order for it to be safe for our body. And oppositely, too, because our body makes nitric oxide for a lot of metabolic pathways, nitric oxide can spontaneously oxidize and does oxidize into nitrite and nitrate. But when you're eating large amounts of nitrate, you're basically just supplementing toxic nitrate into your body. Then your body has to detoxify that nitrate into nitrite and nitric oxide, which requires these specific enzymes. But as you get older and you have metabolic disease, your ability to do that gets less and less and less. And because nitrate specifically inhibits mitochondrial respiration, it can actually kill you in high doses. And it actually did. The farming industry, the agricultural industry, the industry, not like, farming as a practice, but the industry itself, was unregulated, and they would dump there would be lots of environmental contamination by nitrate excess. It got so bad that drinking water got so high in nitrate, it actually killed children. There were places where their water supply was contaminated with so much nitrate, it actually killed people. That's what nitrate does to your body. And when you eat common wheat, it has thiamine mononitrate added to it. You are basically supplementing a low dose of this very toxic. And now there's nitrate in a lot of foods naturally, like green plants especially will have nitrate levels, but any conventionally made grown plant will contain at least double the amount of nitrate, if not way higher. But the addition of mononitrate to wheat is absolute insanity. Like, it's literally so insane. Like, I can't believe that this is even legal. Like, nitrate is so toxic for us. Your body can detoxify it in small amounts, but that doesn't mean that it's safe to actually supplement. Something similar, like I talk about, is actually cyanide. Like, our body actually uses cyanide in its immune system, but too much cyanide can do the same thing. Cyanide also inhibits mitochondrial respiration, and it can so much that it can actually kill you. Most people know about cyanide as a toxic poison because of movies and spy thrillers and stuff, and cyanide pills. But there's actually cyanide in a lot of foods, like almonds and leafy greens and yucca, and our body actually uses cyanide in the immune system to kill pathogenic organisms. But too much of it will directly and powerfully inhibit your respiratory system and your cellular respiration pathway. Which that's confusing too. There's a difference. Like, gas exchange in your lungs is called respiration, and also so is the exchange of oxygen for energy production in your cells. But these compounds block both of those functions because they all function on oxygen transfer, which is why they're called respiration. But anyway, I digress. And I forget what I was talking about. Oh yeah, but and because thiamine mononitrate is not the only source of nitrate in our diets, it also comes from conventionally grown grains. Grains and greens conventionally grown are some of the highest, grains especially are very high in artificial nitrate sources. So you're getting excess nitrate from conventional industrial agriculture, from the supplementation of thiamine mononitrate. Also, it can often be used as a preservative in prepared meat products. So if you look at packages of sausage or pepperoni, you'll either see things like sodium mononitrate or celery powder, because celery is also really high in nitrate actually, and it's so high in nitrate it can actually be used to preserve sausage, raw meat. And so if you have all these other sources of nitrate that you're eating in addition to, and then you're also, it's just full on supplemented as a supplement in wheat, common wheat, plus the iron, plus the gluten, plus lactic acid stuff, you are basically just completely wiping out and destroying your local gut microbiome. And then you get easily colonized by these pathogenic organisms. That's why I spontaneously just started having back pain when I was in my 20s, because my entire diet was based on common wheat and yogurt and not enough carotene and not enough sunlight. I mean, so sunlight actually knocks nitric oxide off of your mitochondria. It's like sun exposure can actually rescue inhibited mitochondria that are inhibited by nitric oxide. And this is a major, so earlier in the stream, I talked about how it's not nebulous that these are bacterial problems, because you also usually present with other health issues like hair loss and insomnia. Those are also caused by nitrate inhibition of mitochondria and nitric oxide inhibition of mitochondria, because mitochondria produce energy, and if they're inhibited, they can't produce energy. So then your cells start to suffer and suffocate, and then you start to lose hair, and your energy drops, and your skin quality declines. This stuff isn't mysterious at all. But anyway, so the inclusion of common wheat, because of its hybridization that caused indigestible gluten and its additives, plus things like yogurt, like a high yogurt consumption, these are all precursors to establishing the environment that then causes lower back pain, because then the proteolytic opportunistic pathogenic bacteria get to move in, because you no longer have a well-functioning immune system, your mucosal barrier is compromised, and your commensal microbiome, which is one of the biggest promoters of intestinal health, have been suppressed because of those factors. So then these opportunistic bacteria have an easy time moving into your body, and then they start eating away at your tissues and producing toxic amounts of ammonia and hydrogen sulfide and methane and lactic acid and toxic tryptophan derivatives. And I mean, there's a whole host of these things. So then your back starts to hurt because there's literally microbes eating away at your body. So if you fix your diet, cut out these foods, cut out yogurt, cut out wheat, get more sunshine, eat lots of fruits, lots of fruit every day. Start every breakfast with fruit. Sugar and vitamin C and a lot of the other nutrients that are in fruit are so important for our health and our commensal microbiome. There is actually no faster way to restore your commensal microbiome than just eating sugar. The microbes that live in our gut that are healthy for our body love sugar. It's one of the reasons why we have confusing what seem like addiction feelings towards sugar, is because sugar so strongly promotes not only our own metabolic respiration, but also those of the little microbes on which our health is so dependent. If you there's also conversely no better way and faster way to disrupt the gut microbiome than to avoid sugar, because those microbes that support our health entirely rely on sugar as an energy source. Sorry, I don't mean that to mean only. It's one of the major important energy sources for them. So they have a very, very hard time surviving when you go on diets and you cut sugar out of your diet. As a quick aside for anyone who's not heard my work before, that can be confusing, because very often you can experience health benefits when you go on diets. Like, let's say you temporarily do veganism or vegetarianism or carnivore diet. All these certain diets can actually limit certain microbes in your body, and so they'll relieve you of the symptoms that those microbes' presence have been causing in your body. But that doesn't mean that eating like that is necessarily healthy, because you'll then incur other metabolic problems from doing those extreme eating behaviors. Our diet, like the fundamental foundation for human diet are fruits and vegetables, literally, and mostly fruits too. We need sugar and carotene and sunlight. Like these are, and like a lot of people don't consider sunlight as like a nutrient, but it very, very much is a nutrient required for our body. We actually make vitamin D and share it with our commensal microbiome. So in order to actually not have negative side effects from consuming sugar, you have to have plenty of sunlight and vitamin D in your body, because there are also other pathogenic microbes who can use sugar. And like when you get aerobic bacteria, most of the bacteria in our gut are anaerobic. But when you get aerobic bacteria into your gut, they grow really fast and produce lots of harmful compounds. So, and that can be really devastating for your gut. So there are there's lots of nuanced factors that go in there. But anyway, so you cut out metabolically harmful foods like yogurt and wheat. Eat lots and lots of fruits and vegetables. Get sunshine, and then you can use iodine and Swiss cheese to knock out the pathogens that are causing your low back pain. And literally, it will fix it. Like it will fix it. If this doesn't work for you, contact me and ask me why, because it will work very fast. You might have something that I don't know about. Like, for instance, like if you're on pharmaceutical meds or things like those can wipe out and change your microbiome too. So, but literally, like you can, if you have low back pain, you can wipe it out in a week if you eat the way that I recommend and then wipe out those microbes with a little dose of iodine, probably like around 20 milligrams in some milk. And I say milk because iodine binds to fats really well. And then very often when you have metabolic disease, you're not really absorbing fat very well. So it'll actually go through your whole gut. You can just take it though. Like if you just take iodine, iodine is used in it. Like, also to clarify, like people think of using iodine as like being antibiotic. Like the iodine will directly kill these bacteria, and it can, but in reality, our body actually captures the iodine, and then our immune cells use that iodine. They produce these things called hypohalous acids that are made by immune cells, and those directly oxidize the bacteria. So the iodine isn't just disinfecting your gut. What it's actually being done is your body is capturing the iodine and then using it purposefully to eradicate those bacteria that have colonized your gut and lower back and that are eating your tissues alive, literally from the inside out. And then if you continue to eat and maintain all of the factors that I recommend and discuss for maintaining a healthy microbiome, then you're resistant to recolonization. And so that's why I'm like 42 now and even larger than I was when I was in my 20s and don't have low back pain. And I sit almost just as long every single day, and I never ever have back pain. It just doesn't even happen. Like I don't get stomach aches anymore either. And it's because it all has to do with like how your diet influences your gut microbiome, and usually that is not what you're getting from popular clickbait sites. Those people have no idea what they're talking about when they talk about things like gut and diet. There's lots of personal bias and institutional bias in there that sugar is bad for you. It absolutely is not. That wheat is okay. It absolutely is not. There are replacements for wheat. I use spelt and einkorn. I make bread all the time. It tastes better than common wheat even. There's no downside to it, except you do have to make it yourself. But there are other options that they don't. You can buy it. I buy one brand I love is called Jovial Foods online. They sell a lot of einkorn pasta. It's so fucking good. But also that's an aside. You should never have. I mean, you can. It's not gonna harm you. A one-off. But as a general rule, you should not have whole grains that are also not sprouted or fermented. The phytic acid and other anti-nutrients that are in whole grain will chelate out your body, chelate calcium and other stuff out of your body, and zinc. And whole grain always needs to be sprouted or fermented to break down those anti-nutrients. And so if you do buy alternative wheat products, you should look for ones that are refined grain, because pasta is never sprouted or fermented. Second cough. Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's low back pain. So, tell people this, share this thing, help them not have low back pain. You don't have to suffer from it, and it's shocking how fast you can fix it too. And then you can avoid surgery. And surgery doesn't even help with that either. Do you know what they do in surgeries for problems like that? They go in and they cut up your ligaments. They perforate them, and that makes them lengthen and elongate, and then your body repairs that damage and fills in the tissue. So it literally makes it longer. But it doesn't do anything to actually fix these underlying metabolic diseases. So then, several years down the road, you get the same injury again, and it continues to persist because surgery, like doctors are really good at surgery, but it doesn't fix these underlying metabolic. Like it doesn't matter how much surgery you have, that's not going to change. Well, gastric bypass would change your gut microbiome, but you don't want to do that. It's unnecessary. Unless you have like a more serious, like you're missing a disc. And I mean, I forgot to mention, I talked about psoas muscles, but like the same problem is happening to your discs in your spine. The circulation of these incredibly toxic compounds, it prevents your spinal discs from regenerating. And they don't have to be injured for the rest of your life. They can regenerate. Like most of our body tissue can easily regenerate. And also surprisingly, in very short amount of time, it does not take very long to get cured of that at all. It's really funny and really sad, but like my mom was having really bad knee pain, so much that she was having a hard time walking. And she didn't tell me that she was having her knee replaced because she didn't want me to tell her not to. When I found out after, I was like, Mom, I literally could have fixed your knee in like a month or two. Like, it's not that hard. Like, she wasn't that old. She was only in like 60. Like, if you're like 80 and you want to get a knee replacement, like, go ahead. But like, if you're like 60 and thinking of a knee or hip replacement, like, that's insane. Like, all you have to do is fix your diet and get some sunshine, and you can also do things like put topical magnesium chloride on the top. That helps too. I'm much more specific about this in my book. These streams are not a supplement for the information in my book. This is more of a showcase. But the strategies in my book that detail and discuss stuff like that. You can easily fix joint and bone pain. But you're not going to find that information through clickbaity websites and mainstream medical care. They just want to sell you pills and give you surgery because that makes a lot of money. They're not interested in actually curing these problems because that doesn't make any money for these industries. And they are industries. Like don't mistake that. I get really frustrated when I'm watching certain streamers who are supposed to be activists and champions of the working class, and then they get on there and they talk about all the pharmaceuticals that they're taking. Like the pharmaceutical industry is as much interested in the exploitation of workers as any other. Like just because medicines can heal doesn't mean they do, and also they make a lot of money. So if you then on top of it, like how easy it is to cure some of these problems, like it's insane. Like I literally had the most debilitating back pain of my life, and I changed it and fixed it in 2 days. 2 days. And granted, at that time I had already changed my diet, so it was a lot easier for me. If you haven't fixed your diet and you don't get sunshine, this probably still will work for you, but it will be more likely to work if you do those things, and probably only take you like a week or two to fix it, instead of like going and having somebody cut open your body and then also never actually fixing the problem, because it doesn't fix the problem. It just is a temporary solution. So yeah, anyway. I was a lot more angry about this one than I thought it would be. I think it's because I had such bad back pain in my entire life, and I just kept being told, so here's another aside too. So when you have low back pain, we often take medicines like painkillers like ibuprofen or Tylenol. But guess what? Those also are really toxic. They actually inhibit inflammation too much. Like they're too good at what they do. So they actually inhibit tissue regeneration. I often see and advise women who are postpartum, right? And it's very common for women to be given ibuprofen or Tylenol after, or maybe just ibuprofen actually, after labor because of the pain and if they tear during labor. But guess what? Because those medicines they actually inhibit inflammation too well. So then that actually slows tissue regeneration. Like, inflammation is not arbitrary. Like, it has a purpose. The purpose of inflammation in the body is actually to instigate healing and tissue regeneration. That's how the body draws in immune cells and nutrients into an area that need it, and stem cells. And so if you're taking ibuprofen or Tylenol when you have a problem like low back pain, that actually makes it worse, because it actually also contributes to the same metabolic torpor and inhibition of cells that the bacterium, which are at issue, are also doing. So it's actually better to use aspirin. Aspirin is really good at promoting tissue regeneration, whereas pharmaceuticals like aspirin's a pharmaceutical, but whereas pharmaceuticals like ibuprofen and acetaminophen inhibit mitochondrial respiration, aspirin actually helps to promote mitochondrial respiration. So you can actually use like a low dose of aspirin to help also accelerate your tissue regeneration for your low back pain. Yeah. Is there anything else? I can't think of anything else. Is there anything else you guys can think about for back pain? Mike, what? Yeah. So so that's back pain. So if you have other questions and want to talk about other shit, ask away. Mike, what about sprouts, like in Vietnamese cooking, or alfalfa sprouts? What do you mean? What do you mean about them? Like, what do you mean about them? Like that they're bad or good? Sprouts are generally pretty good. I really love microgreens. Microgreens are delicious. Oh my god! Like, I have a recipe for microgreen salad on my website. Microgreens, sprouts are basically it depends on the sprout. Sometimes sprouts produce anti-nutrients, sometimes they don't. Sprouts are probably actually better than like a seed, for instance, because a seed, especially if it is not sprouted or we're talking about sprouts. It has a lot of anti-nutrients in there, like phytic acid specifically. Like the job of phytic acid is to prevent the leakage of nutrients from the seed, because seeds sprout in water, and if a seed got wet and didn't have phytic acid, it would just lose all of its nutrients to the environment. So phytic acid helps a seed to retain its nutrients. But during the sprouting process, the seed starts to break down the phytic acid so that it can access those nutrients using phytate. So sprouts are actually probably better than actual seeds anyway, because they do that. The sprout has denatured probably all of the phytic acid that was in the seed, and has all the same nutrients in it, because and very low in phytic acid. So sprouts are actually pretty good. They're usually high in. I don't really eat sprouts a whole lot, or microgreens. Sometimes depending on where I live or what stores around me, some stores will have lots of microgreen products or not, and if they don't, I just have normal greens and other stuff like that. But yeah, sprouts are really good though. I mean, they're not bad for you. So if taking taurine causes pain, is it the biofila and the bio stuff? Yes, actually. Okay, so biofila, not all biofila, but some of them, Biofila wadsworthia is a potential pathogen of the gut that actually feeds on our bile acid, and it removes the taurine conjugate from bile. And taurine is a sulfur-containing amino acid. It's actually not a proper amino acid, but it's still referred to as amino acid. And uses that as a source of sulfate for sulfate. It's a sulfate reducer. So where we use oxygen to respirate, bacteria like Biofila use sulfate to respirate. So it uses the taurine as a respiration source. And then the byproduct it produces is a lot of hydrogen sulfide. And then hydrogen sulfide can cause migraines and make you feel really lousy. But Mike, no, sorry. Presence of Biofila will promote and help promote like low back pain and migraines, and lethargy. But if you take taurine as a supplement, which I do recommend sometimes to those of you who don't know, taurine because it's a conjugate of bile, and very often we have a taurine deficiency because of stress and microbial pathogenic colonization. If you start taking taurine, it can actually promote an increase in bile expression, which can give you a bad stomach ache, because it's over your body is trying to produce bile and can't, so it increases the stimulation of bile release. Just like our body, like when you have low thyroid function, your body tries to produce more thyroid by increasing thyroid stimulating hormone. And then if you take like some iodine, you can temporarily cause hyperthyroidism. Sorry, I don't think I said that clearly. Hyperthyroidism. And so if you take taurine and you have a stomach ache, that just means that you're producing and releasing more bile, which is actually a good thing. But you can take a break from taking the taurine, allow your body to finish secreting that excess of bile, and then start taking it again. And then and usually, like when I did that, when I first started taking taurine, I got a stomach ache like 2 or 3 times from it, and would take a break and then restart again before my bile expression normalized. And then I've never gotten a stomach ache from it again. So it depends on where the pain is. If it's a stomach ache, it's bile. If it's low back pain, it is pathogenic bacteria like Bilophila. Yes. So yeah. Yeah. Well, this wasn't a very long stream. If you guys are here and you want to ask questions, ask away. Otherwise we will end it. Yes, if you have my book, I am going to be releasing an update very, very soon. If you don't have my book, though, you can still buy the book and you'll get the update for free when it comes out. I always send the update for free to the email used to purchase the book initially. So if you purchased the book, and I mean purchased, not stole or or got from some other shenanigan way, you will receive the free book update when it comes out, and probably in a few weeks. And I got some great stuff in there. More information on cystic fibrosis. What else? Oh, there's some crazy shit in there. I mean, there's so much. The update is so long. You won't believe the email. There's so much in the update. Melinda, why do I think Reddit is an awful site? Melinda, every single time that I have tried to participate in Reddit and help people with health stuff, I've been shouted out, just literally driven off the site. Like the moderators or the participants ridicule me and say awful things to me and drown me out and vote down my posts. I have never ever been able to participate in Reddit without being attacked. It's insane. It's fucking insane. I mean, I recognize that two Redditors look at military based on the PSYOP. I don't know if it's a PSYOP. I don't think you need a PSYOP. Human nature is just like Reddit is. If you guys don't know the Stanford prison experiment, Reddit is a prime iteration example, recreation of the Stanford prison experiment, where like what in the Stanford prison experiment, because it was done at Stanford, what the people wanted to do is they wanted to study how humans behaved when they got power. So they took a whole bunch of just random people. This wasn't a study done at a prison. They took normal citizens who were not in prison and put them in a fake prison environment. And they made some of the people inmates and they made some of the people prison guards. And the study got so out of hand that they had to stop it early. I don't know if I'm repeating this right. I might be wrong. But I think the way that it went was that the guards started actually becoming abusive and bad, and they had to stop the study because it started getting dangerous. Because most human beings, most human beings are saddled with trauma and very insecure. So if you give them power, they suddenly have no natural barrier to inhibit that insecurity and manifestation of trauma, and they will then act on that insecurity and trauma. And that happens in places like Reddit and stuff. If you're not if you're not adhering to the institution and authoritarianism, the people that are supporting the system will attack you, right? I mean, that's the whole thing with authoritarianism. And this is one of the things that really makes me laugh about the whole Repeat community and Repeat forums. Like, there's so many people on there railing against authoritarianism. And if you gave them even a little bit of power, they would be just as bad as everyone they're complaining about. And the reason they're complaining is not because of authoritarianism. They are complaining because they are not the ones with the power. This factors into a lot of political dynamics in the world. I mean, a lot of politics are like just like that. You get people who start off starry-eyed and they want to change the world, and as soon as their moral compass is challenged, they dump it. And because the point in the first place is not to change things because things need to be better, but because they are not the ones benefiting from the system. So as soon as they then start to benefit from the system, their motivation completely changes. And that's what happens on Reddit. Reddit is like, they don't allow anyone to deviate from the status quo, just like every other system. The way that it is set up is very specifically designed to suppress people with alternative viewpoints. So anyway, so every single time that I've tried to participate on Reddit, I've been chased out of there. And I've tried a few times. It's been sort of serendipitous because my work has not been more complete until more recently. So whenever I do gain more visibility, I will have more to contribute than I would have at those times. But, like one of the times I tried to contribute was try to explain to people how alcoholism and addiction work. There's a lot of people out there with alcoholism and addiction who need help. I was able to cure my alcoholism. And I'm fucking mean cure. I mean, I know a lot of you here have probably already read my book and know my work, but people that haven't, like I full on used to be a bottle of tequila a night alcoholic, or 6-pack of beer or 1 or 2 bottles of wine. And I would try to stop all the time. I would go for like a day or two and then just couldn't do it. And because I'm 6'7", like downing a bottle of tequila is easy for me. And I thought I used to think it was a great trick. And the last drink I had this year was actually on New Year's. I full on cured my alcoholism and addiction because I found through, Rave's work helped inspire this, but I found out how, alcoholism and addiction relate to acetylcholine pathways in the central nervous system, and how trauma exacerbates excessive acetylcholine production in the brain, and thus facilitates and contributes to alcoholism and depression. And so I tried to you're a moderator. Oh, that's fun. If you want to shout out your page, you can. Unless you don't want to, then don't. There's crazy people on the internet. But yeah, so I tried. So one of the ones that I tried to do was try to introduce my work on alcoholism and addiction in there, and the moderator of the group, not just one group, but one group was the worst. Literally just like started lecturing me and saying really horrible things to me about alcoholism and addiction. Clearly he didn't even know anything about science or biology or alcoholism and addiction. It wasn't in an alcohol and addiction forum. It was something else I won't say, but and so that was like an example of that, getting chased out of there. So yeah, so yeah, so I don't participate in there, but anyway, you guys have any more questions? This was really nice. I know it's a shorter stream. Actually, it's almost 2 hours. I guess it's not that short compared to my other streams. It's a little shorter. But anyway, hey, thanks for hanging out, guys. I really appreciate your support and being here. If you aren't subscribed to my channels or social media, the links are down below. You can support this channel there as well. Get a book, tell other people about my book, help other people. Yeah. It's for Pocket City. Oh, fun. I've seen that around. I want to make a game that's a lot like that. I've really always wanted a SimCity game that had better, like, sort of low poly art. And Pocket City almost got there. I haven't played it, but it looks fun. So fun though. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Thanks for being here. Hey, I'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your week. And I'm gonna release out my update in a few weeks, so keep your eye out for that. And I'll do another. I'm gonna do another stream right after that update. So, and it'll be a big stream, and I'll announce it in my email that I send out for the book update too as well. So anyway, love you guys. I will talk to you later. Have a good, I already said that, but yeah, have a good rest of your week. Be healthy, eat well, take care of yourselves.